In this video, we're going to take a look at making a Magic 8-Ball program. This is going to include generating a random number and tying that to a specific output. And to do that, we're going to use case statements. So let's go ahead, let's open up our toolbox on this form, Control-Alt-X, and that will bring open our toolbox. And we're going to be looking for a couple buttons. We need one button so we can exit another button that will actually generate the output. So we're going to look right here. We're going to double click button twice, once for one button and once for another. We're going to drag these on our form. We're going to make them larger so we can actually see them. We're going to drag this first button right over the second button so they are the same size. It doesn't matter where you put them because we're going to be moving them shortly, but we do need to give them a name. It doesn't matter if you make your exit button, button 1 or button 2, it will all work the same, and that's why we want to name our buttons. So right down here, if you look at the properties, you'll notice text. We don't want to change that first, we want to change that second. So we're going to go down to name. The prefix for a button is btn. This will allow us when we're looking at our code to know that it's an object that's onto our form and not a variable. So we'll call the first one btn exit. I want to change the text so it says exit. That way the user knows what the button does. If I just leave it as button 1, that doesn't tell them what the button actually does. So we'll move that right over here and we'll program all these in just a moment. And then button 2, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to change the name, but I'm going to call it btn predict because it's going to, when we click that button, it's going to generate an output. And the Magic 8-Ball is going to make a prediction. So I'm going to type in here, predict. There we go. And so now the user will know what those do. The next thing we want to do is we want to put the Magic 8-Ball onto the background of our form. And there's a reason for that. Maybe we want to make this form bigger. If I don't make it part of the background, what's going to happen is I'm going to need to shuffle around a lot of things, especially with that picture. Well, that's not what I want to do. There are a couple ways to import pictures on this form. You can go right up here and you can go to background image. You can click on these 3 dots and you can import an image this way, and that's completely okay. I'm going to show you a different way to do it. That way, when you want to import WAV files, maybe some audio, some other objects or files, you'll be able to do that. So let's take a look at how that's done. We're going to go to the top. We're going to click on Project. And we're going to scroll all the way down here where it says Magic 8-Ball Properties or whatever you called your project. We're going to click on that. I'm going to move this Properties window out of the way. And it's going to bring up this screen. What we are looking for today is on the left-hand side, we're looking for the option Resources. Go ahead and click on that, and you'll see this screen. We want to change it from strings to images. So here, you're going to click on this down arrow, and you'll see all the different things that you're able to import into your project. If we just use those 3 buttons, we know how to import images, but not anything else. I wanted to show you all the different things you can import into your future project. For today, we're going to click on images. Then we're going to click on this down arrow next to add resource, add existing file. I'm going to double click the Magic 8-Ball. Now it's part of my project. I'm going to go back to my design. I'm going to move the properties back over here. And I changed the text of this form to say Magic 8-Ball. So if you scroll down to the text, right here, you'll notice it says Magic 8-Ball. We don't want it to say Form 1. That looks a little unprofessional. We want it to say Magic 8-Ball. If it says Form 1, the user is not going to have a clue what that's referring to. Now, we don't need to change the name of the form. We can leave it as Form 1. It's the only form we're going to have, so we don't really need to name it like we did our buttons. But what we need to do now is we need to get the Magic 8-Ball onto the background of this form. So I'm going to scroll up to image, background image, I should say. Click on these 3 dots. There's my Magic 8-Ball. I hit OK. And you can see it doesn't fit my form at all. And I wasn't expecting it to fit my form. If I make this form larger, notice the image begins to repeat. That's a problem. Or maybe my image just isn't large enough, or maybe it's too large and I want to scale it down. Rather than moving a picture box around and these buttons around and the label, which we're going to put on in a minute, I'm going to change the background image layout from tile to stretch. Now, no matter how large I make my form, the background image of my form stretches. So I'm going to make mine about that big. I'm going to move my exit button down here, my predict button right over here for now. We can change it later. And what we need to do now is we need that label. We need a way to show the user the output of the program. So I'm going to bring up my toolbox. Just so you know, if you ever accidentally close your toolbox and you don't see it, Control-Alt-X is that shortcut to bring that toolbox back up. We're going to scroll down to label. We're going to double click it. Then we're going to take our label and we're going to move it right about here. Try to center it up the best we can. Now, you are able to make a label transparent when the form background image is here. If you use a picture box, it's a little more tricky. But because we made it our background image, we're able to make the label transparent. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this properties windows back over so we can see it. Then I'm going to scroll down to name. I'm going to call it LBL output. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the text so it says try. All right, let's make it say ask me. There we go. Because we don't want it to say label 1 when our program starts. That's going to look a little silly. We're going to change the font. We're going to make this slightly bigger. So let's try 10. We don't want to make it too big. Now, that looks silly with a gray background. So what we're going to do is we're going to select, make sure your label is selected. You're going to click on back color. You're going to click on this web right here, this center button. You're going to choose transparent. Now it's transparent, but the black on dark blue, black text on dark blue is a little hard to read, and there's also some black shading in that triangle. So we need to change the forecolor, which is the actual font color itself. I don't like that blue. Let's make it white, just like an actual 8-ball is, maybe. I'm not really sure. All right, there we go. So with that, we are now ready to begin programming. The first button we're going to program is the exit button. This is so when we're testing our program, when we want to close it, we can exit it appropriately. So this project is going to use all local variables. If you don't know the difference between local and global variables, that's okay. We'll get to that in another video. So I'm going to do strexit as string. I can't do exit as string. If I do exit as string, it's not going to allow me to do it because exit is a reserved word. So I do strexit, which means string exit, because the user is going to click either yes or no. And because that's a string, I need to store their response. So I'm going to do strexit equals MSG box. Then I'm going to ask them, are you sure you want to exit? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a simple if statement. If strexit equals VB yes, then application dot exit. Now, what we need to do is we need to give them the VB yes no button. If you only have the prompt, there's going to be one button that says okay. Well, we want to ask them yes or no, so we're going to put a comma and we're going to type in VB yes no, just like that. We don't need yes, no, or cancel. No and cancel serve the same purpose, so we don't need an extra button in there. If they hit no, nothing happens. The program keeps running. If they hit VB yes, then the application exits. Let's go ahead and test it out. So we're going to hit that start button. We should see that form in just a moment. We're going to click that exit button. We're going to test it by hitting no to make sure the program keeps running. Then we'll hit yes. Are you sure you want to exit? No. Perfect. Nothing happens. We hit yes, and the program exits. Now that we have the exit button done, we can program the predict button. So I'm going to double click that. Make sure I'm in my BTN predict click. Also, now's a good time to check your exit code to make sure it's under BTN exit. And that's why you always want to double click the object you're working with, because then you'll make sure you're in the right part of your code. So I'm going to dim rnd_num as new random. Why am I doing that? Because that's going to actually generate a random number, but then I need num as integer because I need to hold that random number because I'm going to use that for our case statements. And then I need one more output as string. And the reason I need that is because based on the number that is picked, I'm going to take a message, I'm going to load that into output, and then at the very end of our code, I'm going to take whatever values inside our output variable and load that into our label output into the text property. The first thing we need to do is generate a random number. So I'm going to do num equals rnd_num dot next, and I'm going to open up my set of parentheses. Now there's a set of numbers that go inside these parentheses. For a Magic 8 Ball, there are 20 different outputs. So there are 10 what they call affirmative answers, 5 non-committal, and then 5 negative answers. So there are 20 in total. You might be saying, well, we need to generate a number between 1 and 20. And that's what most people do. And you want to spell rnd_num correctly. What you need to know is that this first number, this 1, is inclusive. That means the random number will include 1. The second number, 20, is what we call exclusive. This will only generate a number between 1 and 19. It will never generate number 20. So in my 20th answer, I have signs point to yes. Well, that's never going to show up. So when you put in your random numbers, make sure you do 1, 21. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do select case num, case 1, case 2, case 3, and we're going to go all the way down to case 20. Let's fast forward where that is done. Now that I have my 20 case statements, because there are 20 different outcomes, we can see that this is much simpler to write than writing a whole bunch of if, else if statements. Select case statements or your case statements are another type of selection. They're a little easier to read sometimes, and they're a little easier to program when you have a lot of different outcomes, such as 20 different answers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right across the answers that you see. So output number, case 1, my output is going to be the very first one. Now I'm going across column by column. So I'm going to type in it is certain. Then I'm going to copy this because a lot of it is going to be, or all of it is going to be the same. For case 2, moving to the next column, reply, hazy, try again. Then case 3, going across to the negative, don't count on it. So I'm going to type that in, don't count on it. All right. And then get rid of this parentheses here. So we're going to go ahead and do that for all 20 case statements, and then we'll come back and we'll test it out. So we have all our case statements filled in. If you have any case statements left over, that means you missed one. But once you have all 20 filled in, then we're ready to go ahead and test our program. There's only one more thing we need to do, and that is to take the output contents and put that inside the text property of our label. That way the user can see it. So we're going to do label output.text equals output, and just like that, we're ready to test our program. Now this green line, the computer cannot predict successfully whether or not one of these case statements will run. So that's why you have a green line. So if you see a green line, nothing to worry about there. The computer doesn't know for certain that one of these case statements will run. So it's saying, hey, you may be using this when it may not be filled with anything. So you can, you don't really have to worry about that green line. So let's go ahead, let's run our program and let's see it in action. So it says, ask me. My sources say no. And already you can see here, it's going outside the bounds of the triangle. And we're going to fix that in just a second. Most likely that looks good without a doubt. Again, going outside the bounds. Yes. Signs point to yes. It is certain. Now it is possible to get the same answer twice in a row. That is definitely possible. And that's because it's random. Like it is certain just popped twice. I hit it 2 times, and it is possible to get the same output twice because it is all random. But what we need to do now is we need to exit our program. We need to go back to our design, and what we need to do is adjust some properties of this label. That way it doesn't go outside the bounds of the triangle, and we try to keep it as close in the triangle as possible. Let's talk about how to do that now. All right, we're going to right click on this label. We're going to select properties. Now the first thing we want to turn off is the auto size property. So if we scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see auto size where it is true. Go ahead and change it to false. This way we can make the label as big as we want. When we have auto size turned on, it's just going to keep running from left to right until it fills in the text. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this label a little larger. Bring this up here. We're going to try to keep it as close inside the triangle as possible. And then what we're going to do is this text, we're going to align in the top center. So we're going to go up, and right here where it says the text align, we're going to do the top center. I can get there by double clicking. Now let's go ahead and let's test our code. Let's go ahead and run this. Let's make sure it's going to line up pretty much within the triangle. And it's looking really good. So even with the reply, hey, the reply is hazy, try again. It's showing up in the triangle. So it looks much, much better. Concentrate and ask, again, is probably one of the longest string of text that we have. It is decidedly so. So we can see that it's all fitting inside the triangle. There's only one more question to ask, and that question is, should you subscribe and like this video? Signs point to yes. So if you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to help the channel grow. And we'll see you guys in the next programming video.